Wednesday. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. I'm your host, Maddie Margarita, here with Diana Pardee. Every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., SCWA turns our Facebook page over to a new author to talk about their books and their work. Today, we have a returning author for a special Christmas edition. Welcome, Leonard.
Well, glad to be here again, Maddie. Always a pleasure.
Let's tell everybody a little bit about you. Leonard is an award-winning author. Is it TEDx? Is that the right or just
correct? TEDx, yeah. Mm-hmm.
TEDx speaker, psychotherapist, and life coach. For the past 40 years, he has worked both in Australia and America as a therapist, writer, and educator. His books include the best-selling books Bob Cratchit's Christmas Carol, The Untold Miracle of Charles Dickens Classic, and The Roadmap Home, Your GPS to Inner Peace, as well as the novels Cuckoo Forevermore and Kookaburra's Last Laugh, lighthearted satires on psychotherapy. He's the author, along with Mary Franks, of Fighting for Love, Turn Conflict into Intimacy. He lives in SoCal, where he writes, coaches clients, and conducts seminars. This morning, we're here to talk about book 2 and the Christmas Carol series. How exciting. You know, I love the books, and put my copy back here. So let's start. I just am interested to know, from your opinion, or in your opinion, what is it about the story and the characters that have stood the test of time and inspired you to put your take on it?
You know, I am a fan of Charles Dickens and loved A Christmas Carol. So it was just a terrific book. And I always thought, when reading The Christmas Carol, I always thought of these characters. So Scrooge, we know his character arc goes from the miserly, greedy man to this very generous, benevolent man. And then, like the first book, Bob Cratchit, he worked for Scrooge for 20 years. And I thought, what kind of a man would work for Scrooge for 20 years? And he, obviously last year, the Christmas spirits visited him. And then this year, I thought, well, here's his son, Tiny Tim. He's a crippled little boy, and he may die, so that his possible early death was kind of foretold, or as a potential future in Charles Dickens' book. And I thought, what kind of boy? He's in pain all the time, and he clearly he'd probably get bullied by the other children in the neighborhood. And I had one of his brothers bully him as well. And so little Tiny Tim had to put on this innocent, endearing face to the world. But underneath, you know, I draw upon my psychological background, you know, as a therapist, and I says, well, underneath, there must be some demons at work here that require the Christmas spirits to visit him. So that brought me to the idea, well, Tiny Tim needs to be visited by Christmas spirits, and this time they're children's Christmas spirits.
I love, and as anybody who buys the book, as they look through it, will see that there are color illustrations in the book. Tell me why you thought that was important and what that adds.
You know, the in A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens hired a illustrator to do different. They were black and white illustrations back in the time, and I thought, well, I wanted to have the same flavor, the same kind of a atmosphere, and so of course I'd have to have some illustrations, just like Charles Dickens had illustrations. And then I hired this wonderful illustrator in Egypt, and I had to do a lot of research. So I had to conceptualize what do these spirits look like. So they're children, and then I had to do a lot of research and checking out images and pictures, sending him the images. It was a very collaborative, but I had to say, this is what I would like the spirits to look like, and the clothing, the colors, the type of personality they have. So I had to really, you know, it was like I was in production mode. I was an artist without being an artist, trying to craft these illustrations. And I mean, that was a feat in itself, because there were multiple drafts of the illustrations. And one of them, so we have the cover. So, this is the cover of the book. That was not the first cover. There was a cover of, and the illustrator had Tiny Tim. I says, why don't we put him in front of a toy store? So the illustrator had Tiny Tim in front of the toy store looking at all these toys. And I was checking out with other beta readers and says, this is not a story about Tiny Tim. He's not yearning for toys. This is not his story. It's about his relationship to his father. And so I had to scrap that cover. I says, well, that was a nice draft, but let's scrap it and let's start from scratch. And so, just like in writing a book, there's all these multiple drafts that go on.
I think one of the wonderful things about this project is that it is so your project all the way through, from not only the writing and the interpretation and your experiences and how they transform and translate into the story, but in the production, like you said, in the cover, in the illustrations. So, and nobody knows your story really better than you. So I think it really is an immersive kind of experience. And I also think that it's a very inclusive experience, in that I think that anybody who reads this book is going to be able to relate to one or all of these characters on some level at some point. So based on their own experiences. So did you think about that when you wrote that, or did that just happen magically?
Well, absolutely. And I want to involve the reader. So even I started off the book starts off, whether you know it or not, my dear reader, you are in need of a miracle. So I wanted to engage the reader from the very first sentence. You are in need of a miracle. And that's why you're reading this book. And this book is the intention is to create miracles for you and to see how miracles have happened in this boy's life. And really, my belief is miracles happen all the time. We just have to open our eyes and see the miracles around. I mean, really, Maddie, this is a miracle that you and I are having this conversation and we're not even in the same room. I mean, when you think about the miracles, it's incredible.
No, you're right. And, who doesn't need miracles at Christmas time, right? Which is kind of interesting. And, Christmas is as fun and magical as Christmas can be, it also has its potential dark underpinnings for some people.
It does, because as a therapist, some people go in crisis during Christmas because Christmas is, we create Christmas. The ambiance is it's a time of being close and intimate with loved ones. What if you're alone? What if you have no one in your life? What if you had a very dysfunctional family where every time at the Christmas party, everybody was arguing or people got drunk? And so people have all kinds of images and memories of Christmas. And sometimes it is a very difficult time for some people who have bad memories of the past or are alone and have no one in the present.
I think that may be one of the reasons why Dickens chose that background for the story. The dark versus the light and the paradox there. But for you, when you read the story is wonderfully entertaining and easy to read, but it also has depth and resonance. So what is it that you were hoping that people would feel when they finish reading the story?
Well, it's the Christmas spirits have different messages. And I wanted these messages to be relevant for each of us. So, like the spirit of Christmas past, we do have to look at our past and see that our past impacts our present. So unless we actually heal some aspects of our past, they're always going to be in the background pushing us forward. So in Tiny Tim, he'd have to go back and really look at what is his past. The same thing happened with Bob Cratchit. What in the past has shaped him to live in his present life, and he has to let go of the past. Maddie, we do have to let go of the past if we want to be fully present. And so that's the message. One of the messages for the spirit of Christmas past, you have to let go of the past. And then in the present is there's presents all the time in the present. It's a gift, and so look for the gifts at each moment of the day. And just like I'm speaking with you, what a gift, what a gift to be able to speak with you and have this interview and to share with you. I mean, this is what a gift. And this is the present. And then the future is the choices we make today impact our future.
Well, I think those are messages that everybody needs to be reminded of. It's helpful, especially this time of year. with so much going on and so many potential distractions. But the book, I noticed this lovely gold seal on Bob Cratchit's Christmas Carol. So you have an award-winning series that's garnering lots of attention, and I think you just recently had a front page interview. Is that correct?
This is true. So this is a miracle in itself. So I contacted the Dana Point Times and said, hey, listen, I'm having my next Christmas book is coming out, and you may want to you may be interested as a personal interest story for the holiday season. It's kind of a feel-good story, and so I got together with a journalist at a local hotel. She wanted to take some pictures. And I said, oh, sure. So we had an hour interview. I'm just talking with you. And she says, it may not appear in the actual print because depending upon what we have going, but it'll be a digital. And I don't know. I can't promise whether it's even going to be in there. So, I said, okay, well, it's in there. And it may be stuffed somewhere in the middle of the pages. And all of a sudden, a friend of mine texts and says, Leonard, you made the front page. And I says, really? And then, so that was a shocker for me because I had no idea that the story would be placed on the front page.
The story of you writing these books and then the stories within that story are really inspiring, to any writer, to anybody who has a passion project that they're looking to invest in, or maybe take a chance, step outside of their comfort zone and do something, because you have had success in your career and as a psychotherapist and a life coach, and now that's not enough for you, so you're reaching out and stretching and exposing your innermost thoughts in your books. So what caused you to kind of step outside of your career and get into writing?
Well, I've been writing for 35 years, and I was teaching positive mind powers. Oh, geez, that was back in 1984.
You're supposed to go, yeah.
Yeah. And I had this thought because I was teaching everybody in the positive mind powers, just set your mind and you can actually manifest it. I said, I'm just going to write a book and I'll get it published. Well, my first book was a fantasy book. It was like the architect trying to create the Taj Mahal. And I failed miserably. And then in 1987, I was working at a child and adolescent psychiatry department. And I thought, I want to go back and writing a book. And there's a writing workshop that just happened to be offered. I was taking an astrology class, but that was canceled. So they said, we can't give you money back, but there's a writing class. So I took the writing class, and then that thrust me. That was a miracle, really. And sometimes we think miracles, oh, darn, my class was canceled. But in return, I hooked up with my writing mentor. And that's how my writing began. And I believe that writing is, Stephen King says, writing is our therapy, and writing is my therapy because I'm working out all my inner issues by putting them onto characters. And so Tiny Tim, Bob Cratchit, ooh, my anxiety. So, okay, I grew up in your normal dysfunctional family. And so the anxiety I felt in my family, okay, let's take this anxiety and put it into a character, and let's help this character kind of work through his anxiety. So that's the beautiful thing about writing.
Well, I'm always curious for somebody who has been trained to think like you. When you read other people's writing, do you feel like you get insight into them as a person? I mean, do you think there's a way for good writers not to expose their inner traumas, feelings, experiences in their writing?
Maddie, I could read any novel and I can tell you what the psychological issues are that writer is dealing with. I can tell you the themes that are prevalent in their life, and I can tell you by looking at the characters what are their inner issues. I mean, we don't realize it as writers, but we really are revealing our inner self, and it's under the guise of characters. So, I always was, who's this? We had a number of speakers at Southern California Writers Association, the one who was writing about horror. And then she says, well, whatever she's really frightened of, that's what she kind of resurrects and she writes about it. I think she was frightened of rats. And
Dana
yeah,
Hammer.
yeah, Dana Hammer. So she was frightened of rats, so she wrote about rats. So she knew that this was a therapeutic process for her in her writing. Well, it is for all of us writers. We're all writing. So it always strikes me, a lot of mystery writers who write about killing off people. Well, they're very kind of calm, gentle people, but underneath, this is a time to get rid of the rage, and let's kill somebody.
Well, it's so funny that you said that, because I've been to a number of events where you have writers and different genres, and I find that the people who write comedy are the least funny people to listen to and the most neurotic. Yeah, like you would say, okay, pick out the comedy writer or the humor writer. But if you talk to the people who write those dark murder mysteries, they are hilarious to talk to. So, and I've always wondered why that is. Is that a different part of them, or?
Yeah. So think of it this way: we have many parts of our psyche. It doesn't mean we're schizophrenic. It just means we have many parts. I have my critical part, my kind of a ambitious part, my accomplisher part, my neurotic part, my anxious part. I got all these different parts, and part of it is in our writing is those parts that really need to be fleshed out and called to the front are the ones that will come forth. Like in the romantic stories, it says the main character is looking for that which is missing to create balance in life. So it's like the writers, we're writing about that which is missing in our life to create balance in our life. It's the same kind of a thing. So if I am suppressing a lot of anger, well, to get balance out, I got to be writing about a lot of anger out there.
So interesting. So, okay, so we are now at, you're promoting Tiny Tim's Christmas and doing a bang up job of that. So are you working on something else right now while you're doing that, or?
Yeah, so next year I've got my third Christmas book. So it's this will be my third. This would be the third in the, and I think this would be the end of the series, because I'm only drawing upon characters in A Christmas Carol, Dickens' story. So, I'm going to leave it to the readers. Who do you think? Like, I'm going to ask you, Maddie, if you thought of some of the characters, who do you think the next Christmas Carol would be about? So we have Bob Cratchit, Tiny Tim. Who else is deserving of a book?
See, that's so funny, because whenever I see the movie, the question always comes up in my mind: what about his wife? She has to deal with
whose wife?
Bob Cratchit's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has to deal with his anxiety of working for Scrooge. She's got this poor child that she loves. She's got this family. She's the heart of keeping everything going, and you don't get to see or hear much about her in there. She's always in the background. So, but she's the voice of she's the Greek chorus in some cases in the story. So it may be somebody else, but I would be curious about her, because we don't get to hear much about her.
Well, she definitely popped up. So, I had like three characters. I said, okay, these three characters deserve more fleshing out. She definitely was one of them.
Nephew? I'm trying to
The
think.
nephew, definitely the nephew was another one. I thought, well, okay, Fred, Scrooge's nephew, definitely deserved A Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm.
And okay, so who is it? Can we know?
All right. So this is going to be a real different twist. This is going to be Jacob Marley's Christmas Carol.
Oh.
So Jacob Marley was the first ghost to visit Scrooge. He's in chains. And he was the one who appeared in the doorknob, and he was Scrooge's partner. So it's Scrooge and Marley. So and he's dead. So wow. So I'm already outlining this, and this is Jacob Marley's Christmas Carol, because you got to go to his backstory. Doesn't that sound intriguing, huh?
It does. It does. I can't wait. But if you want to do book 4, I'm voting on the wife.
Yeah, well, if there is a book 4, and if there's a clamoring from the audience to have book 4, I think Emily Cratchit will be definitely,
Potentially book four.
huh?
Potentially book four.
Potentially book
Okay, so
4.
everybody who's watching this now, go into the Facebook video and put down who you would like to see of the characters that we talked about today, who you would love to hear Leonard or see Leonard write about. So maybe you have book 3 in progress. Maybe we can inspire you to write book 4.
That's a great question, Maddie. Yeah. And they may have someone else in the story, because the person has to appear in the story. And I haven't seen the movie Spirited yet, but I heard that have you seen the movie
No,
Spirited?
not yet. No.
So I'm planning on watching that, but because I guess it's all about the spirits.
But I love the message. I love the approach. Your writing is wonderful. It's easy to read, which means it's hard to write.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so true. I'll tell you, if you ever watch a trapeze artist or anyone in the circus and it says, "Oh, that looks pretty easy," as my writing mentor said, if people say, "Oh, that was an easy read," he says, "That's the greatest compliment anyone can give you." He says, "That was an easy read." Wow. Hallelujah. I was successful as a writer.
But your first instinct is to look at them and say, "Oh, I'll show you easy. That took me 10 years to write it, to get it like
Yeah.
this."
Yeah.
Your first,
Yeah.
like, is that an insult or should I take that as a compliment? But it's true, because people just don't. They feel, they're not stopped. They feel they can get through it. They understand what's there, and I have to tell you, and I after you gave me the book, I read it, and it does. It stays with you. It resonates. So I encourage. Where can people buy the book?
Well, basically online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the books, most people order their books online. I'm so sad. I used to love going to the brick and mortar, the bookstores. I would go on a Sunday and just hang out in the bookstore. And that was my go-to place. And now, it's like I go to the library, and the library doesn't have the same feel. You can't buy cappuccinos at the library, and,
Well, you still get to be surrounded by books and all the people that wrote them, the ghosts of all the people that wrote them. So I'm trying
that's
to.
true. Go ahead.
Oh, I was trying to see if people order the book today.
So it's on Prime. So a lot of people have Prime. If you order Prime, if you order the book today, it'll probably arrive tomorrow or the next day.
So there's still plenty of time to get it before Christmas. It's a great gift.
Yeah.
People that may or may not have experienced any of the things that are in either book. I think that these are great books, and if you can afford to buy both, buy both.
Hey, let me ask you, Maddie. What was your takeaway from Tiny Tim? If you had one takeaway, what would that be?
It's really funny. I liked what happened with Tiny Tim, but I always was fascinated by the relationship between Scrooge and Tiny Tim, and how Scrooge, for me, I thought Tiny Tim was the icebreaker, was the ice pick in the dam, for Scrooge. But I think overcoming that and dealing with that and going through and being part of that whole experience and coming out differently and dealing with the ghosts, I loved all of it. I don't know if that was a very articulate answer, but
well, his relationship with Scrooge, I wanted to put down, so even Scrooge, you see in the book, well, Tiny Tim was able to see the future impacts. So what happens if Scrooge doesn't change? And then you see, his horrible life just continuing. What happens if he really embraced love? And then we see the miracles happening for Scrooge. So Scrooge, obviously, the ghosts help transform him, which happens to us. We all need wake-up calls to break out of our habitual way of relating to the world. And with Scrooge, when he embraced love, at least with Tiny Tim, all of a sudden his life began to be transformed. Just like, because the message is really letting go connecting with love and seeing everyone as having this incredible light and spirit within them.
I really enjoyed it. I think everybody who reads it will walk away with something. Whether, like you said, depending on their experience, every reader brings their own experience to the page. But I think it's rewarding, and I think it's a great gift, and a great way to spend a Christmas, an evening that's leading up to Christmas. Sit down with a little hot chocolate, be a little hot toddy, depending on your taste, and sitting down and reading. I think everybody would be excited to do that, to read it. So I wish you a
Thank
lot of
you.
luck, Leonard. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. And I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season too.
Thank you, Maddie, and thank you for all that you do. I know that you do so much for us writers, and I just want to say thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you. It's nice to have a psychotherapist amongst all our neurotic writers. So that's good. That's good to know. And I, as I said, I thank Leonard for being here. But most of all, during the holidays, we are thankful for our gifts and are grateful. And one of them is the people who watch our videos. And I hope you enjoy them. And the authors that we bring to you, and continue to support them. You'll all have a happy and healthy holiday season. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your support, and we will see you very soon.